right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. And my name is Seth Ulinski. I'm Director of Content Community here at Permission.io. We are excited to connect with everyone here today. This is our very first LinkedIn Live event. This afternoon, we'll discuss Web3 advertising, what it is, and why it's so important to this consumer-led web that we keep hearing about. And before we get into the fun stuff, we have a quick disclaimer I've got to run through, so bear with me. This discussion is for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. With this in mind, there will be no talk around current or future token price. And please, DYOR, do your own research and consult your financial advisor before making any investment decisions. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's have some fun. In order to understand Web3 advertising, it's of course helpful to get a primer on Web3. So for those who are not familiar with Web3, the movement or the ethos, as it's commonly referred to, the core aspects or elements include transparency, ownership, and trust. And you can make an argument largely blockchain is the genesis of this opportunity and this movement. So with that said, we'll dive into some of the technical details as we move forward. But first, we'll give you a primer of Permission.io and our mission. So Permission.io allows consumers to earn crypto rewards in exchange for sharing their data with brands. So this, of course, is an opt-in or permission-based model that ultimately creates a zero-party data asset. And this really is a foundation for a true value exchange between brands and consumers. So in Web 2, basically the web that we've kind of grown up with here today, a lot of the big tech companies that we know, these big consumer-facing platforms, Google, Meta, formerly the artist known as Facebook, Twitter, and some of the other big tech players, they really have a stronghold on consumer data through these free platforms that they offer. And in Web3 with Permission.io, what we're ultimately looking to do is have brands ask for the privilege to tell their story, to engage with consumers. And in exchange for this opportunity, consumers can earn a little bit of crypto. And this is, of course, a value exchange where it's attention and data and an opportunity for brands to engage in a new way. So that's really exciting if you've been in the industry for any period of time. And if you think about Web 2 and kind of what we've gotten used to with this attention grabbing, if you will, interruptive ads, floating ads that kind of get in front of your content as you're kind of scrolling along, are things that are just buried in content that kind of interrupt the flow of your content. That's largely referred to as interruptive advertising. And for the most part, it's kind of been the norm up until now. So in Web3, what we're ultimately trying to do is break away from that and get into a more consumer-friendly, of course, permission-based, ask for permission. You know, it's kind of like good manners that your parents taught you growing up. You don't just barge in and try to steal the show. You ask for permission, and then good things can happen from there. So permissions utility token ASK is positioned to be the utility token for this Web3 landscape that we're looking to help drive. And in addition to the crypto rewards side, we'll talk a little bit more about non-fungible tokens. And I will defer to my colleague Steven in that capacity. But NFTs, as they are, open another set of doors for additional brand engagement opportunities. So if we were to take a step back and just kind of look at some of the macro headwinds in the industry, really consumers are the product that are fueling this $600 billion ad industry as it is today in 2022. And there's just, again, a few of these big tech companies that largely dominate the market. And again, it's based on our data collectively. So as third-party cookies kind of slowly exit the stage and privacy walls go up, we're going to see more power going around these data oligarchs that already have a massive position in the market. So with that said, the advertising model is broken. As I mentioned, you've got this interruptive business model that for whatever reason, we just deal with it. And in addition to that, no surprise, we see ad blockers being used more frequently. And there's really minimal to zero value exchange. And that's the reason why consumers are using ad blockers and just saying no mas when it comes to interruptive advertising. And then if you look at brands and agencies, they really have limited options when it comes to media placement and partners. So permission ads, along with this zero-party data asset that I mentioned, this is an alternative to the big tech that we all know and, well, somewhat love. It's a little bit of a love-hate relationship, I'd imagine, with some folks. But in addition to this alternative with zero-party data and permission ads, it's also an opportunity to be 100% compliant with all of these new consumer data privacy regulations going up. It's an alphabet soup that starts with GDPR, CCPA, DCA. My colleague, Michelle Wimmer, will be able to speak a little bit more eloquently to some of those than me. But suffice to say, as the project has grown, Permission's attracted some industry leaders. And with that in mind, would love to introduce a few of the brilliant minds here that are blazing trails for this Web3 advertising initiative. And first, I'd like to introduce Lauren Gretzky. She is Permission.io's Chief Revenue Officer. Lauren's previous roles in sales and business development. She comes from Facebook/Meta, as well as Roblox, Nickelodeon, and she, like myself, has also hung her own shingle and done consulting. So with that said, Lauren, you are in the trenches. You know what's going on. You're speaking to these big brands and agency holding companies. You know, how are they responding to this Web3 advertising opportunity?
Hey, Seth. Well, first and foremost, thanks for the opportunity to be here. And for all of you that are listening in, it's really great to be at the forefront of Web3 marketing, advertising, from both the advertiser side and from the consumer ecosystem. So really excited for the opportunity to be with you all. And Seth, thank you for teeing up sort of the background to Web3 and some of the changes in the industry, as well as some of the demands of the consumer. And I think, you know, in terms of my experience in the marketplace with brands and agencies and this whole new world of crypto and gaming and NFTs, you know, Web3 is a really unique opportunity, but we can't forget that Web 2 is very much still the underpinning of the advertising ecosystem. Web 3 is built upon Web 2, quite frankly. And Web 1 was the beginning of it all, which was all built upon. So before we, jump into more of Web 3, I think it's important to also take our hats off to all of the innovation that happened in Web 1 and Web 2 that got us here to Web 3, and knowing that we still stand upon Web 2 and Web 1. What's interesting about being at Permission is that we are all built very intentionally around the idea that brands have this unique opportunity to ask permission of users and reward them for their time, attention, and data. And in terms of, the place in the marketplace, we've all experienced the impact at a publisher level, at a platform level, at an advertiser level of some of the new implications from Apple's IDFA changes, Google introducing the same thing in the Android store, and then at some point planning for cookie deprecation. But our access to data and analytics continues to be essentially handicapped to reach our users and to be able to attribute success. And so at Permission, one of the key things that we do in one of our core offerings is tokenizing rewards for users, typically with our ASK token and in some cases NFTs, for users as they give advertisers their time, attention, and data. Consumer sovereignty is at the center of Web3, and so we feel really excited about what this means for consumers, and then also that relationship that gets created with the brand and the advertiser. In addition to that, we have audiences, and this is what gets really exciting. We have proprietary Web3 audiences built into our identity graph. And so the way that we drive distribution is through our patent pending DSP as the tokenized rewards DSP. So coupled with our Web3 audiences and an identity graph, We have really strong machine learnings that provide accelerated results for marketers. What's important at the end of the day is that while we are moving into Web3, that we still are reaching our marketing goals and our business goals. And the last piece is that we definitely are built on transparency. And so with that being said, we're working with a number of partners also of just reaching Web3 audiences and driving performance results through our patent pending DSP. So I'm really excited about the results that we're leveraging. We're typically seeing about 5 to 6x higher engagement rates, higher action rates, and really efficient rates in terms of bringing down the cost per action and CPMs. And typically, we're seeing about 40 to 50% lower CPMs versus industry standards that are on other DSPs. So we're really excited about that. We're a cross-vertical solution from telco to CPG to blockchain and Web3 and crypto advertisers. So as we continue to diversify, we're just excited and eager to partner with more brands to help them drive significant results and to position themselves as leaders in Web3.
Dynamite. Thank you so much for that, Lauren. Gosh, it wouldn't be a party unless we brought ad ops into the equation. So with that said, would love to introduce our head of advertising operations, Michelle Wimmer. And Michelle's led and consulted on ad tech for some of the leading Fortune 500 companies. A list a little bit too long to go over here, but suffice to say, some of the biggest fish in the industry and on planet Earth. So would love to hear from you, Michelle, from a data and privacy standpoint. How do you see Web3 solving for some of the challenges, or we'll call them pain points, in Web2?
Sure. So thanks. So at Permission, we're really looking to solve for the data and privacy challenges that are prolific right now. So making sure that we're offering this first to market. So our solution is a first to market rewarded DSP, and it's focused on collecting permission-based zero-party data. That zero-party data really being the key. So the solution solves for data and privacy concerns by allowing permission-based tactics. So we're compliantly asking people for their data that we're advertising to on behalf of our advertisers, and then we're getting permission to use that data in return. By collecting in that data, then we're partnering it with our customer data platform, and we're unifying that data in a way that allows us to build upon the shared zero-party database. And advertisers, as a result, then they have access to this zero-party data and these databases. It enables them to do a lot of things. Important to note is strategies that they can develop from these zero-party databases that they have access to, as well as building some of the modeling and building upon some of the modeling and machine learning that Lauren was talking about. And ultimately, this leads to better advertising campaigns, better results that everybody can take a part of from the advertiser's perspective. And additionally, it's a win-win for the consumers too. They have the opportunity to be rewarded, and that's something that's currently missing from Web 2, as we all know. And in the back of our mind, Google keeps going back and forth on their deprecation of third-party cookies with the Chrome browser, but it really does continue to be at the forefront of our minds as we're thinking about what to do with third-party deprecation. And this really does help advertisers to have a solution or to get ahead and really plan for what it would look like or what it is looking like as we are pushing further away from third-party cookies. And our solution and strategy enables advertisers to be able to do so.
Dynamite. And then regarding transparency and controls, I know transparency is there are hot buttons, and then there's transparency. What might you be able to share as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, so I am a big believer in transparency and it making it all better for everybody, from the advertiser's perspective as well as the consumer's perspective. So we at Permission have a full MarTech stack. That's a mouthful, but it's really a full stack that's in place with our DSP as well as our CDP. And we have complete access that our advertisers have to that. So we really do believe in giving complete transparency and control to our platforms. If an advertiser does have their own CDP, of course, we can work with that as well. So we've got a flexible model set up that really enables this transparency, and at the heart of it being the enablement of the value exchange that Web3 promises for the consumer.
Dynamite. Thanks so much for those insights and that overview, Michelle. Really appreciate that. Last but not least, Steve Carrillo, VP of Web3 and Brand Partnerships. So Steven has over 15 years of technical sales experience, and having previously been an enterprise IT analyst, I have an appreciation for enterprise sales. So Steven, we've heard a lot of talk about tech and privacy and data and all these other moving pieces. Sounds pretty complex. Would love to hear your thoughts on whether or not, some of these are indeed technical challenges, or kind of what you're seeing from the field.
Yeah, thanks, Seth. And, welcome to everybody to the LinkedIn Live. This is super exciting. Like Seth mentioned, my background is more on the technical side. I started my career doing programming, and then I went super deep down this Web3 rabbit hole. And full disclosure, like when you go to a party, I'm that guy that just wants to talk to you about crypto and Web3 and NFTs and how they're going to change the world. So I tell you that as a disclosure so that you can either avoid me like the plague or, become my best friend at these parties. But if you whisper the word NFTs, I think we become instant best friends. So I appreciate the opportunity to be speaking today to everybody about Web3. And Seth, to answer your question, which is like, what is the hardest technical challenge about onboarding brands? And really, the hardest problem isn't technical. Like, the onboarding to our platform is frictionless. It's as easy as any other DSP that they're using today. The challenge, I'll say, of onboarding brands isn't actually technical. It's more related to education, which is actually the most exciting and one of the most enjoyable parts of my job, is that education component of these brands are starting to lean into Web3. And the first thing they ask is like, well, what is crypto? What is this magic internet money? And so Lauren, myself, and team get the opportunity to present in an educational series called the Learn and Earn, like onboarding brands as they lean in. What is Web3? What is blockchain? What is crypto? What is NFTs? And so this is like one of the most exciting parts of my job, is getting to educate leaders in the space, CEOs, executives, because I get to see that aha moment when it really clicks. Like, why, not only why a Web3 audience is valuable, but why it's valuable to them today, tomorrow, and long term. And then some of the, I guess I'll say, opportunities that they can achieve with blockchain technologies like cryptocurrencies and NFTs, especially, NFTs. So everybody gets excited about NFTs, but like when a brand marketer, like when they see that aha moment of, oh, I can distribute at scale a piece of my brand identity, my brand IP to a core consumer. And so I can use that for not only time, attention, engagement initially, but it's the re-engagement, the brand marketing component. And so that's really like where the excitement and the wheels start to get turning with the learn and earn process. And so I think back to like my slippery slope down the Web3 rabbit hole. And so I get to now be part of that process for these leaders in the industry that are in Web2 and they know they need to move to Web3. And so we have the opportunity to onboard them into that new consumer journey. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge, but it's also the biggest opportunity that exists right now is really leaning in to build upon, like Lauren said, Web2 is here, Web3 is built on top. So it's not destroying, but it's really just additive to what they're doing today.
Dynamite. Thanks, Steve. I'll use a term, backwards compatibility. Does that resonate? I mean, it's kind of a technical term. I don't want to like outreach myself here, but no, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much for those insights. And definitely crypto, Steve knows NFTs. So for more, definitely we're all on LinkedIn, of course. We're on the Twitterverse, crypto Twitter, as it's known in some circles. But yes, thank you all for joining us here today. We'll start to wrap up. But of course, building the world's first Web3 ad platform is a huge endeavor. It's a Herculean effort, if you will. So it's a team effort. We have a very talented group of developers behind the scenes that are just making all this magic happen. This is early days. So by all means, if you're interested in learning more, reach out to one of us, follow us on Twitter, follow us on LinkedIn. We'd love to ideate and collaborate with folks. And without further ado, we thank you for your time, and we'll see you in Web3. Thank you so much.